What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker.
Amir, Rahimi.
And today on The Great Debaters, man, one of the best of all time, EPMD. We're getting into it. All right, everybody, I'm Soren Baker.
Amir, Rahimi.
So today for The Great Debaters, man, EPMD. As a lot of people know, this one of my favorite groups and also one of the best groups in hip-hop history by far. And with their third album, Business as Usual, first on Def Jam, another masterpiece from Eric Sermon and Parrish Smith. Amir, this is their third album. As you were getting into this album and starting to understand what was going on, what were your first impressions of Business as Usual?
Well, the first thing that struck me was the cover. The cover was very interesting. You know, with Strictly Business, you had them in the studio, very iconic. I also love their logo. The second cover, they're just on the cars. Really cool cover as well. This one, it looks like they're in some trouble. You got the police, you got the ghetto bird above them, you got handcuffs, you got guns drawn on them, and they're just kind of like, what's going on? You got the canine near I think that's Parrish right there. So I'm just like, this just looks like they're knee deep into something. So when I first saw that, I was like, okay, this is probably going to be a very hardcore album. No pun intended. But that's what I first thought. And then what I first thought when I started playing it, I heard I'm Mad, which is also one of my first picks. And I'm Mad is really just like, the instrumental on that is just something else. It's incredible. That instrumental is very chaotic, but in a good way. Somehow they made all those different elements to make it all just worked. You had like the piano, which sounds kind of crazy. You had the sample. You had the scratching like underneath, and then when you got to the chorus, you heard more of it. You got the dope Beastie Boys sample, James Brown. It's just like there were so many things that were thrown into that song to make it work, and it all worked. And I haven't even talked about the lyrics. And you got Parrish Smith going, and you got Eric Sermon going, and they're really like. Their lyrics on this, I really like how there's some songs on this album where they're really just like bragging and boasting, and it's just like, I just love when certain rappers do that. Not all of them can pull it off. I think they pull it off very well on this album. I'm Mad. I'm just loving it. A big shout out to DJ Scratch. The stuff he does on this album and on this song are just great. So I'm Mad. I think the way they set the tone for this has to be one of my picks.
I'm Mad is also one of my top 3 picks for Business as Usual for all those reasons. And this song just has all the elements that I love about rap. It's got scratching all over the place. It's got intensity both lyrically, vocally, and sonically. Mm-hmm. And then you got the tag team going on a little bit, not too much, just sprinkled in. But how they scratch and use the words as they're rhyming, to pause and change and do all this stuff, and then the James Brown and Beastie Boys, kind of that juxtaposition is phenomenal. But Eric and Sermon's like confidence and anger and just venom on here, while not being super explicit, but also being like, yo man, don't mess with us because we're mad. I was like, just when I put this on, it just made me feel like, okay, we're about to get into a phenomenal album. And Business as Usual is one of those, because EPMD just basically did that almost every time. Every time they just came out, just slaughtering it. But I'm Mad just set the tone for the album, and it really just, to me, is one of those pinnacle songs. It's not a single, it's not a video, it's not a very much discussed song, but to me, this is one of my favorites, not only on Business as Usual, but just period, because it just has such brilliance to me. So that's one of my picks. Amir, what's your second pick?
No, that's very true, and we've stated in many of our episodes how starting off an album and starting off a song are very important, and this album was started off incredibly well. So moving on to my next pick, it's actually the next song on the album. They started this album off super well. Hardcore track 2, also featuring one of my favorite rappers ever, Redman, and talking about really knowing how to use your guest appearance Redman knew how to put all eyes on him, to be quite frank. His verse, which was so good he had to use it twice when he used it for What the Album, which actually I had heard What the Album first before I had heard this. So when I had seen the track list for this, I was like, hardcore featuring Redman. I was actually kind of upset that it was the same thing because I was like, oh, please just be a different Redman feature, please. But it was the same. But then we also got the awesome verse by Eric and the awesome verse by Pear, so that was good. But Redman, one interesting thing about his verse as well is how in his lyrics he's using one line where it's dedicated to where he's emphasizing words with the letter M, then another thing where he's emphasizing with the letter L, and the way that he's doing that, with his flow and just his confidence, he's really putting the spotlight on him. And his verse is also longer than Parrish's and longer than Eric's. So they probably were like, yeah, you gotta go and just keep it going kind of thing. So hardcore, amazing.
And it's a brilliant introduction to him. Mm-hmm. We got K-Solo on Unfinished Business, and now we get Redman on Business as Usual. Like two phenomenal introductions to what would be later known or phenomenally known as the Hit Squad, and just great, great, great material. And this is not one of my picks because it's just too hard to pick 3 songs but it's just an amazing thing because my picks, as we discuss them and as I think about them, have more musical energy to them, and this one is more intense on a underlining intensity. Like it's a little more subdued, musically and orally, I think. Whereas my picks all have a lot more energy as far as out front, more hyper, I think, and that that's just ended up being my preference for these. But hardcore, of course, is phenomenal. One of my other picks for number 2 is Rampage because of the energy of it, and of course, as Amir said with the guest appearances, man, LL on there is phenomenal, and just the funkiness of that beat, and then how LL flows, and with Eric and Parrish, they're so different on that song compared to how they usually are. I don't know if that's because LL's on it, but with hardcore, I thought it was much more of how they normally sound. Whereas with Rampage, I thought they kind of changed their tempo and their tone a little bit. And I don't know if that's because of LL. I don't know if that's the beat. I don't know, but I just think Rampage has a lot of scratching on it. It has the phenomenal guest appearance by LL, the ruler, the master, the overlordian, playing MCs like an old accordion. Like when I heard that, I was like, what
is an overlordian? I've looked that up. It doesn't exist.
And how many rap songs reference accordions also? And that's how you're playing an MC like it's like, dude, LL is just astonishing. But that song to me, and then the video took it to a whole other thing where LL doesn't even look in the camera, and the whole video is like mysterious. It's just the whole thing about Rampage is just incredible. And then watching Nuggets, it's just the lyrics that are dropped. It's just incredible. Yeah. So what's another pick for you?
So that's my last pick, and that's it's track 1, 2, and 3 for me.
Oh wow!
And we can go on in the album and pick another one too, or another 2. But Rampage, EPMD knew what features to put on. They knew what production to back them with. Yeah. They knew what they were doing. So big shout out to Eric and Parrish for real. I think Parrish's energy on the song was just excellent. I loved how he came in. He was like very aggressive. He's saying like, when I rock the stage, like New Yorkers throw their hands in the air, and all the other fools need to exit and all that stuff. And he's just very aggressive. I think it was in this song where he mentions the carburetor. I was like, who mentions, like, you're talking about overlordian and accordion, who mentions carburetor in a song? And he's like, they panic and freeze. Right. And I'm like, dude, this is so clever. Crack. I smoke MCs. Amazing bar. Then LL, he's just so good on this song. This production on this song is great. One little thing I did wish I have, because after LL's performance, it was just so wild. And like I said, they all did great. But after that LL thing, I kind of wanted LL to anchor that song. I feel like LL should have been the finale of that song. Like, you know, Parrish and Eric and then LL to close it off, because after that, it's kind of like, we're done here.
Yeah,
it's like, dude.
Because he got rhymes out there. Forget it, he's constipated. It's just amazing.
Woo.
Now, for my third pick, this is unusual, but it has happened to me many times where the last song is one of my favorite songs. With Funky Piano. First of all, DJ Scratch produced the song, and I, as you guys may have picked up on by now, I love scratching. That's one of my things that drew me into loving rap. When my friends Hammer Early gave me my first tape back in the day, and it's something that I still love and I miss it. So when I hear old songs or I hear current ones that have scratching, I'm a little more drawn to those. And Funky Piano has so much scratching, and DJ Scratch produced it, which is also an anomaly at this point in EPMD's career. I was just blown away, and I love songs about the DJs. So they're rapping about DJ Scratch and how awesome he is, and then he shows you how awesome he is with what he does on the turntables, which, you know, this is the end of 1990, and unfortunately within a couple years, DJs had almost been removed from scratching and doing what DJ Scratch does on this album and throughout the rest of his phenomenal career. We lose that. So this is also one of those reminders whenever I hear Funky Piano and I hear Business as Usual and I hear I'm Mad and I hear Rampage, and So What You Saying and all these great things that EPMD and Scratch did together, it just really takes me back to the time of how phenomenal rap was and remains, but I do miss that. And Funky Piano is kind of that bridge, you know, from the mid 80s into getting into the 90s of this phenomenal stuff that we had. So Amir, what did you think of Funky Piano?
I mean, like you said, I think one important thing that you mentioned is how the DJs at one point in hip hop were more so, you know, in the photos, part of the forefront. They were mentioned on the album covers, you know. I think that is one very important. I like how DJ Scratch had a lot of spotlight on this album. Like we praised DJ Scratch on this album, and I'm sure the people who hear this album are well aware of his contributions, as well as how much better it sounds with the DJ all over it. So Funky Piano is great, also a good song to end the album with, and a great album as well. I mean, I picked the first three songs, so it just shows how heavy it was in the front of greatness, and that's not to say the things after were not, because trust me, there were great ones. Like that other Redman feature too, I really like. You got just a lot of really good stuff, and then they continued the Jane series, but Business as Usual, man, really good stuff.
Well, those are my top three picks, and you guys got Amir's top three picks. What are your top three picks? Hit us as always in the comments section. We'll be sure to get back to you on Unique Access Entertainment. I'm Soren Baker.
Amir, Rahimi.
The Great Debaters, y'all. Business as Usual. EPMD. All-time greats.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV back with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.